Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers. Shout out to everybody else passing through. All my YouTube listeners, salute to y'all as well. So I'm back again with another episode in the podcast, life, relationships, everything in between. It's been a long minute since I came through to give y'all some content, come through with a topic. So I'm back with another one. We're gonna get into something today. Yo, it's crazy that I feel like I have to do this, but in this day and age, you almost gotta preface everything. You almost have to issue disclaimers anytime you open up your mouth to give your opinion about something. Now, I was born in the early 80s. You know what I'm saying? I'm 34. I come from an era where if you had an opinion about something and you was real about that opinion and real about how you felt, and then sugarcoat shit and then smile in people's faces if you didn't fuck with them, and if you didn't like something and you stood up and said, Joe, I don't fuck with that for one reason or another, you were respected for that. You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't have to agree just for the sake of agreeing. You didn't have to go along to get along. And if there was a group of people, and I'm just stating this for the record, just for facts. If there was a group of people, i.e., homosexuals, black people, white people, Spanish people, if there were, whether it was, women or men, if there was any group of people, however we categorize people, and you had an opinion or thought about a particular lifestyle or life choices or whatever it was, it just was that. And if people didn't fuck with that opinion, they saluted you for having your opinion and they kept it moving. I mean, yeah, there's healthy debates and that should never go away, but people weren't bashed just because you didn't fuck with something. Now enter this new generation, the day and age that we live in now. If you don't agree with something, whatever it is, it's automatically hate towards that thing. If you stand up and just say, yo, respectfully, I just don't fuck with ABC, it's controversial. Like, yo, you're a hater, you're anti this. If I say, I like the nighttime just because I fuck with the nighttime, that don't mean there's something wrong with daytime and I don't fuck with the daytime and people who go out during the day. But that's the generation we live in. If you have an opinion about something, then that means you must be strongly against everything that's outside of that realm. And that's how people are treated. And I don't fuck with that. So I said all that as a precursor and as a catalyst into the topic and the content that I brought for y'all today. So having said all of that, let's get into this podcast. So, I'm first and foremost for the people who are going to say, yo, you're fucked up for having that opinion. You don't know what these, people go through, or you shouldn't have no say over what these people do, or you shouldn't, if you were in the same shoes, you would feel differently. I'm not. The whole point of an opinion, the whole point of analyzing a situation and looking at it from the perspective that you're in is because you're in that perspective. You can't be in a perspective other than your perspective. It just is what it is. And perspective is reality. I'm a parent, right? I'm a father. For as long as I can remember, throughout the majority of my adult life, whenever this topic will come up, I will always, more often than not, quietly say to myself, like, yo, I don't understand how people fuck with that. I don't understand how people don't see it on this level. And they never really do. It's always dismissed as, it's their decision. They should be able to do what they want. Nobody should be able to tell them what, they can and can't do. So what am I talking about? What's the topic? What's the issue? The issue is, abortion, not just specifically abortion. The issue is abortion in the sense of, women being legally allowed to have abortions without any say so or any input or weigh in from the father. So here's where the shit starts, right? Here's where everybody's already like, fuck is this nigga? He's crazy. There's no fucking way that any man should ever have any say so about what a woman does with her body. Y'all need to get off that shit. It takes two people, two individuals, a male and a female, to create a child. Period. A woman cannot get pregnant by herself. Now, if you look at a family dynamic and you look at what, any child growing up in a family dynamic where there's a mother and a father, that child or those children equally love both of those parents equally. You can't take away one without the other and then not be introducing some kind of detriment to that child or those children. Another sidebar for those people who say, well, there's single parents who raise, well-balanced and productive citizens all the time. Yeah, great. What I'm talking about is in that moment, and for however long it takes for that child to grow into their own and into adulthood and reconcile, if you remove any one parent from a child's life, that child is going to feel that strife for however long it takes for that to pass. If it ever does, because in some kids, it never really passes. But what I'm talking about is if you have a live child, a human being in a family environment, and that father is removed from that situation for one reason or another, that child is going to feel that pain somewhere, some kind of way. And it spills over into everyday life. And when in a family dynamic, two parents are raising a child or children, both parents are equally raising that child. In a family dynamic where there's a mother and a father and that dynamic and everyone is raising that child together. The father and the mom have the same, right to input and birthright to raise that child and to have some say in what goes on into the development of that child or those children. So if we can look at it that way, right? And that makes sense and that's logical. Are you really going to tell me, for all the people who will hear what I'm saying, but for the people who like to pick sound bites and little small clips out of the content and take shit out of context and think that I'm saying something that I'm not? Because what I'm not saying is that women should be told what to do with their body. That's a whole different issue. And we're barring situations where women are raped or otherwise, sensitive situations, where they choose to have an abortion, for whatever reason. I'm talking about if you're in a situation where you're either with someone, dating them, married, whatever it is, but it's an amicable relationship. You and that person are actively participating in that relationship, and that person is a part of your life. They're not a danger to you. They're not a danger to that child. You were not raped or any of those things, that are like one-offs. Then that father 100% should have a say in whether or not you're able to abort that child, because you're essentially killing that father's child. I really am growing tired to the point where I just couldn't keep quiet about the shit anymore. Like, I understand on one hand, people looking at it like, it's a woman's body. She should do whatever she wants with her body. No man should be able to tell her what to do with her body. Yeah, but we're not talking about you just doing something to your body. We're talking about us creating a child together and now you wanting to solely have the right to end that child's life. I don't think that should be okay. Now, I'm going to draw a connection, a direct connection. If you have a child with someone, current day, 2018, right? Current day, you have a child with someone. Even if you're not together, even if you're on opposite ends of the country, until that child hits a certain age, if you want to go on vacation or move to, Canada or whatever, you can't get a passport for that child unless you have a signature from both parents, the okay of both parents. If you're in a situation where, there's custody issues and there's joint custody and, one parent wants to go with their child to another state, you can't just pick up and take that child to another state. People do it every day, of course, but you're not supposed to. That's a custody issue. That's custodial interference. You're supposed to notify that other parent and get the okay because they have the right to know. As long as both parents have their parental rights, they both have a right to know where their child is and is going to be at all times. And that's just a fact. Anybody, and I live in the state of Massachusetts. I don't know what state, people who are listening to this live in, but in a vast majority of the states, you cannot do what I'm talking about. You can't. You do not have the right to supersede a parent where there's no other, issues in that situation. We're not talking about restraining orders. We're not talking about cases where, it's court ordered that this parent, was stripped of all custody or stripped of their parental right. We're not talking about those situations. We're talking about the normal everyday situation of two people who have a child and have a birthright to have a say in that child's life and have the right to play a part into how that child is raised. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything else. So if we draw that connection, and it's understood and it's not disputed because you can't dispute fact, it just is what it is. Then how could you not see on the same level that if once a child is here, then yes, both parents have, a say in what goes on in that child's life and have the right to equally exist and participate in that child's life, then how can you dispute a father not being able to have the right, just as much right to say whether that child lives or dies? It's saying that a father should not have any say so and whether or not a pregnancy is purposefully terminated is like beyond me. And again, and I hate that I have to do this fucking disclaimer shit like every few minutes, but there's always going to be that one person who tunes in somewhere in the middle of a sentence or a thought and takes it somewhere else. We're not talking about situations that are medical emergencies. We're not talking about situations where a person has to choose between their life or the life of their child, and if continuing on in a pregnancy is going to be detrimental to the health of the mother. We're not talking about that. We're talking about women who get pregnant, and because it's not a convenient time in their life or because they feel like they don't make enough money, whatever the reasons are that women choose to have abortions outside of medical reasons, outside of, a woman not wanting to have a child that was born out of a rape situation. We're talking about the normal everyday situations because women choose to have abortions every day all over the country and all over the world for a plethora of reasons. We're talking about that father who you decided to lay down with, have sex with, and get pregnant by. I mean, of course, you don't consciously choose 8 times out of 10 who you're going to get pregnant by, but when you make a conscious decision to lay down with someone, you're potentially choosing your next, the next father or mother of your child. So it is what it is. But what I'm saying is that there really needs to be a reevaluation of how this shit is handled. And even if not, because there probably will never be, people should at least start looking at it a little bit differently. Because if we're honest with ourselves and with each other, fathers are not respected out here. They're just not respected. And again, for the people who will jump in my comments and start talking about deadbeat fathers and what this father doesn't do and what that, I don't care. We're not talking about that. That's a different conversation for a different subject for a different podcast episode on a different day. Today, we're talking about two people equally being involved in the relationship who want, have equal rights, birthrights to their offspring. There should be no reason why the input of the father that, doesn't matter. There was a time when, when your child was born, they would ask who the father was and put that person's name on the birth certificate, barring any one-off situations that would happen where, the person would choose, I do or I don't want to have, my child's father's name on the birth certificate, which That's a whole nother thing. I can probably get into that in on another day. But I just don't get how there's no consideration at all and whatsoever for a would-be father who has to essentially stand by and say, well, reconcile and be okay within themselves that they have no say over getting their girlfriend or fiance or whatever, whoever, pregnant, and having no say as to whether or not there's going to be a baby brought into the world. I think that shit is crazy. And I really would go so far as to say, any half-witted, decent, man who lives the right way and who takes care of their family, or who might not have kids but wants to one day have kids and would, has the character that they would be there and take care of their family and their responsibilities, who wouldn't agree with me, I think it's crazy. And again, I really want to separate out. I want y'all to be real clear what I'm talking about. It's a different issue. It's not about pro-life. It's not about pro-choice. It's not about religion. I don't want people jumping into my comments talking about the religious aspect, because we're not talking about that right now. We're not talking about whether it's morally right or morally wrong. Save that shit for another day. Save that shit for another episode. I mean, kindly feel free to comment if that's what you choose to comment. If it's intelligently placed, I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to engage with you, because anybody who's been following my platform, following my podcast to date, anything that's, articulate, anything that's respectful, I'm going to engage with you, because it's all about debate and having conversations. That's the only way to change shit. The ignorant shit, it doesn't have a place here. I mean, you could do it if I'm, feeling a certain way, or if I'm just bored that day, I might engage with you just to fuck around, but I'm about intelligent conversation, intelligent debate, and discussions that promote progress and forward thinking. And this is a real issue for me. And this is what this podcast and this platform is all about. You know what I'm saying? It's not about bullshit. It's not about just everyday, entertainment, funny shit. There's a place for that. There's a lane for that. That's not what this platform is. This platform is about real life shit that affects real life people every day. It's life, it's relationships, and it's everything in between, because everything is connected. How do you think, as a woman, outside of any of the circumstances that I previously mentioned, how do you really think that I should have absolutely no say if we're dating and we're, doing whatever it is we're doing, and you get pregnant? How do you really think within yourself I should have no input, no opinion, no say so on whether or not you can end the life of our unborn child? Because if you have a reason, if it's a legitimate reason, I would like to know, outside of the situations that I previously mentioned. You can't quote or cite any of that shit, because that's already been handled, that's already been addressed and discussed. Does not apply to what I'm talking about. Just on a life level, on a parent to parent level, how do you have a say in the child that's in your stomach that's going to be both of ours, a life that is for both of us to raise and take care of, and choose how to teach, how to maneuver through this life? How is that your say so alone to end that life? I don't, that part, it baffles me. I have never understood it. I will never understand it. And I'm speaking, I cannot speak from the place of a woman, obviously. I can't speak from the place of an individual who's ever been pregnant in that situation, obviously. But I've been in the situation in a sense of, I am a person who has had to sit back and watch someone end a pregnancy, purposefully end a pregnancy, and me have no say and not even be asked about what my opinion was. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it was years ago. Yeah, I was younger, but at the same time, it's these things that, eat at you and that play a part into the person, that you turn into and that you continue to be for the rest of your life. It is what it is. I didn't really intend to make this one super long, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some points along the way, because this is a real touchy subject for me. And I think that as, when I post this episode up, and as people listen, and hopefully it inspires people to comment and share their stories and share what their feedback is, I'm sure that more ideas will come to mind as I engage and interact with y'all in the comments. So I definitely encourage y'all to comment, like, subscribe, because real shit like this is what's talked about on this platform, and real shit like this is what will continue to be talked about on this platform, because that's what it's for. And I feel like it's what the internet platform, YouTube, Vimeo, whatever it is missing. You know, it's not all about entertainment and ratchet shit all the time. We need real content. And salute to all my channels out there that do that, because there are people out here that are really addressing real life issues. But it's not always just about politics either. Sometimes it's just about regular people deal with regular everyday shit. And this is something that I feel like a majority of you all who are listening to this, if you didn't experience it firsthand, you at the very least know someone who has been in this type of situation. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's fucked up. I think it's fucked up on a very basic, fundamental, foundational level, that, a father to be would have no say whatsoever. Like, I feel like the same way that they apply, to you getting a passport for your child, that you have to discuss with the other parent, have them sign off on it, essentially. I feel like a father should be conferred with. A father should be addressed as to how they feel about that situation. You know what I'm saying? It should be taken into account. How, you have a child and medical history comes into play. The doctors want to know, not just what the mother's medical history is, but what the father's medical history is. Why is that? Because that child shares both parents' DNA. It takes two people to create a child. So why, time and time again, is this government and this court system and this society that we are governed by continue to leave fathers out of the loop, and then criminalize and then downplay fathers for not doing what is supposedly expected, when you don't really have any real power or say so anyway, at the end of the day, if we're really being real about it? And that just is what it is. You can't have it both ways. You can't expect fathers to be fathers and do what they're supposed to do by their children, and then all in the same breath make it crystal clear that a father is an expendable title or position to have. Because I've always felt like this, and it's real, that fathers are treated for the most part as auxiliary parents. It's always automatically assumed that the mom does everything. It's always automatically assumed that if the kids are being raised and cared for and nurtured every day from day to day, that it's the mom doing the majority of the shit. And I don't know if that's a societal fallout of just shit that's been happening over the years, the decades, the centuries, or I don't know if it's partly, biological, or the old school way that fathers just thought all they were supposed to do was work and the mom took care of the kids and everything else. I don't know. All I do know is you can't hold a person to a standard and fault that person for falling short of that standard, and then at the same time make that person feel like they're not even, as important enough to confer with outside of that standard. I don't get that shit. Let me know what y'all think, man. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see y'all in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think about this one, and I'll see y'all in the next one. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. Peace and love.